Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. The revival of Doctor Who has seen a very steady, pacey, quick decline. We call it New Who, of course, because some people don't see it as a continuation of the classic series. I do. It's totally the same show. But we've blamed so many different people, haven't we, in the past? We blamed Steven Moffat. We blamed Chris Chibnall. We blamed poor Jodie Whittaker. But the BBC really have to take all of the blame and all of the responsibility. Because let's look at it. Is it interesting to me that Russell T Davies era was so Russell T Davies and it worked and it was brilliant and it won multiple awards for one thing? Because Russell T Davies intimidated the BBC enough, which meant he could do whatever he wanted. And that's why it worked. Russell T Davies is a Doctor Who fan. He got into the sweet shop. He could eat any sweet he wanted. And he picked the sweets very, very carefully and thoughtfully, right? Doctor Who, Russell T Davies era is brilliant. It has the budget. It has the writing. It has the acting. It has the effects. It has everything. It is a brilliant 5 years of Doctor Who. Because what Russell was able to do was not only kind of bring it into a modern era, but it was still the Doctor Who we watched as kids. Of course, it was more emotional. It was more 21st century, so it should be. But it was still Doctor Who. Because Russell T Davies, as a Doctor Who fan, was very careful with it, right? But I'm not here just to pad Russell's kind of ego. I don't think I need to do that. Russell knows how brilliant he is, and since he's left Doctor Who, he's gone from strength to strength, and Doctor Who has declined very quickly. But then we jump to the Steven Moffat era. Now, very weirdly, it was Russell T Davies who chose who was going to replace him, and he convinced Steven to do it. And of course, Steven at that time had been doing Sherlock. He'd done the Jekyll miniseries. He was on the rise and rise and rise. He's a very, very talented man. I remember season 5, and I was so in love with what RTD did, it really was difficult for me to embrace what Steven was doing initially because it was so different to what I'd seen. So I had to come to terms with it. But when I did, season 5 of Doctor Who was absolutely fantastic. He didn't put a foot wrong as far as I'm concerned. It was beautiful, imaginative. It had everything what a modern day sci-fi show like Doctor Who should have. It was brilliant. And season 6, I really enjoyed season 6 as well. So what happened to season 7? Why all of a sudden did Arthur and Karen leave? Why very quickly after that did Matt leave? And let me tell you about Matt Smith, an excellent Doctor. It always takes me time to, embrace a brand new Doctor. But when I did, I really appreciated him. Why did he leave so soon? It was too soon. He was talking about beating Tom Baker's record initially. What changed, hey, Matt? What changed? I don't blame Matt Smith, by the way. Everyone needs to move on with their careers like Russell T Davies did, like everyone does in the end. But the point is, it was too soon. He had another 3 or 4 years in him. I just know it. What happened was the BBC's interference. They interfered with Steven Moffat and his vision, and they interfered with Chris Chibnall. When we saw Peter Capaldi's first episode, it was Peter Capaldi unleashed. But very quickly within that season, it became the Clara Show. It became very watered down, Peter's Doctor. Why? Because it was a BBC decision. Because Steven had fought for an older Doctor. He got the greatest older Doctor he could get. And initially it started so well. The Doctor was like Dr. Gregory House. He was very scathing, very mean. He was hilarious. We loved him. And Coleman and Capaldi were a great partnership. And I never thought that could work, but it bloody well did. And it was amazing that the BBC watered it down because all the young females were stopping watching Doctor Who, or they were threatening to stop watching Doctor Who. So it had to be about the young, attractive female rather than the person we tuned in to watch. Yes, I've always watched Doctor Who. I know this is really funny and old-fashioned for the Doctor, right? And I love the companion, but if there was never a companion, I'd still watch Doctor Who. So I know to a lot of people the companion is important. To some people, I don't know why, the companion is more important than the Doctor. But without the Doctor, without the TARDIS, you don't have a damn show. It's as simple as that. So the BBC interfered with what Moffat wanted to do. That's clear. It's why Arthur and Karen left. And ultimately, I know that Matt had a really big bond with Arthur and Karen. I think partly he left because they left. He saw them, you know, gaining in their careers over in Hollywood. And he wanted to give it a go as well. And why not? You know, he's shown what a great talent he is. And I just feel that anything he's done since, I mean, he's done great. He's done great. He's played some great roles. Don't get me wrong. But it was too soon for him to leave this role, because when you play the Doctor, you can expand your acting. It's such a challenge to any actor. And when you've got people like RTD and Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall writing for you, it should be great. And then we look at Chris Chibnall, the woman who fell to earth. Excellent. Jodie Whittaker is absolutely the Doctor. And I'm excited by her performance. The same in The Ghost Monument, and in the same in Rosa, a very brave, interesting episode. But from episode 4, season 11 onwards, it became mediocre and boring. That's all I care about. I don't care about the political stuff. All I care about is that I'm entertained. I should always be entertained and excited about Doctor Who, and I wasn't. And that's because the BBC interfered. They interfered with Stephen Moffat because they were not intimidated by Moffat enough, right? This is the truth. And they're not intimidated by Chris Chibnall, and they interfered with what he was doing, and this is why we've got what we've got. I absolutely applaud representation. I do. But let's not insult different groups of people by saying, ooh, look, we're representing you. The content isn't very good, but we're representing you, and that's all that matters. How insulting is that to the people you're attempting to represent? Oh, right. You're here now. Jodie, you're a woman. You're a Doctor. Awesome. It's very boring and uninteresting, but we've given you a job on Doctor Who. So just be happy with that. Are you surprised you're hearing rumours of people walking away? If the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall rumours are true, and they did walk away for a bit and they had to be convinced to come back, maybe they fell out with the BBC. In my initial reports and my initial findings, I was saying that the BBC just weren't pleased with what Chris had done. But I've been thinking about this. It's unfair to blame Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall. It's not fair. We've seen that Chris Chibnall is a very talented man. Where has that talent gone? Where was the great writing from The Woman Who Fell to Earth? Where was the great writing from the second episode, The Ghost Monument? And Rosa, of course. Whose decision was it, after Chris had told us there was a writer's room, for Chris to write the first 5, 6 episodes? It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. And nobody's really noticed that we've gone from 13 episodes to 12 episodes, and now, what is it, 10 episodes? I don't mind 10 episode seasons, but it's how crafty the BBC have dumped Doctor Who down in every level. Now, people say they're spending money for it to look great on the best cameras. That doesn't matter when the story content and the character development is simply not good enough. And all you care about is talking about political issues and race-related issues and Donald Trump. I don't watch Doctor Who for those things. Now, if you want to do them intelligently and pose a debate and a question to the audience, like Chris did with Rosa, absolutely fantastic, and I'm really down for that. But first of all, you've got to make awesome, exciting, epic Doctor Who. So if you're not going to do that, you're insulting the people you're representing. But most important of all, you're insulting us, the consumer, the audience, and throwing at us that we're racists and feminists and this and that and the other just doesn't cut it. Because that's not what Doctor Who fans are. I know we come from different walks of life. I'm sure there are some racists out there and homophobics out there. But on the most part, I think we can all say that we were disappointed in season 11 from episode 4. Because the first 3 episodes, for me anyway, personally, really worked. And this has gone wrong because of the BBC's interference, which they weren't able to do under Russell. First of all, Russell was giving them great results, so they didn't interfere. But it's worse than that. They've been interfering with Stephen Moffat when he got the blame for things going wrong, and you have to question certain moments within Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who, where the tact was changed, where things were being watered down, where before he'd write a great story, then all of a sudden there were simple solutions. And Even the thing to bring Clara back from the dead, was that really his decision? Or was it their interference that they wanted Clara's female fans to be all happy that the final episode, her final episode, was about her? Isn't that more like it? So I think with our criticism and our analysis of Doctor Who, we have to stop picking on individuals. I've done it, you've done it, but I'm taking a step back now. And I'm putting the blame at the door of the very people it should be. The BBC are laughing, loving it that we're blaming Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall and Stephen Moffat. First of all, why don't they appoint their own showrunners, people that they believe can do a great job, instead of getting the showrunner of the time to try and twist someone else's arm into coming? The whole situation is a mess. They have to grab hold of this thing. We need someone to be a godfather or godmother, play a role where they pull the strings, they employ the people, someone who cares about Doctor Who, someone who understands Doctor Who. It's a job RTD could do without committing all his time. He would be perfect. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I do know in the current production of season 12 of Doctor Who, there have been major issues and fallouts between Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker and the BBC. It's as simple as that. They cannot hide from it. This is the internet. We can find anything we want because literally we all have sources within productions now. I know I do, and I'll never reveal those people, but at the end of the day, we know where the bodies are buried. To the BBC, Doctor Who can be a very valuable asset to you, but you can't cut corners. You must grab it and mould it. And the only way you can do that is to have people there at the very top, moulding it and employing the right people to run it. You are an old and great company that have lasted for so long. Surely, questions have to be asked if you're running of Doctor Who. The reason it worked for 5 years under RTD is because RTD was running it his way. And as soon as he left and you could interfere, this is what's happened to Doctor Who, a very speedy decline. BBC, it's time to do better.